this is part 2 of the Karmalek doll construction. Today we've already cut our pattern pieces as described in video 1. So today we're going to get working on putting them together. You're going to need a jersey or a ballpoint needle in your machine, jersey, and you're going to need your calico or cotton pattern pieces. Now remember, we printed off our pattern at actual size. We also then drew round every individual piece, particularly important with these when it comes to constructing the head with your 6 petal pieces. We've got the head pieces pinned together ready to sew. You'll have 2 arms and 2 legs, and remember we didn't cut close to the edge, we've left it so that's easier, and I'll show you how we're going to do that as well. But we're going to just jump straight in, and we're going to start with your body, and I'm doing the large 14-inch doll. So here we go. Pop your needle in, make a start. Now we're just going to sew all the way round. Remember we've got 2 to 3 mil seam allowance. Just cut. You're not going to put a seam allowance, rather you're going to sew along the lines where the template was. Our stitch length is 2.5 because this is a small doll and we don't want any gapping seams because we're going to be packing it full of wadding. So just go ahead and start, back stitch to secure. Already gone off my lines a bit, which is a bit naughty, but hey. As fast or slow as you need to go. And then turn your work, sew into your V, down, turn again, pop your pins out the way, go a bit slow if you need to around your curves. Stitch and forward stitch just to secure at the end. Then what we're going to do, because this is not a stretch fabric, it's your calico or your cotton fabric, you do need to taper, you need to cut into these so that when you turn it out you get a nice smooth seam. So what you're going to do is very carefully, and if you're not sure, if you're not very good and you're worried about cutting your stitches, pop a pin along your stitch line. That should stop you then cutting into. See, your scissors can't cut into it there. So you need to just go along and taper those stitches like this. Just on your curves. And the same down the other side. If you've got these lengths are a bit big for some reason, like me, and it sticks to my lines, I was a bit naughty. You can always just chop that down a bit if you wanted to. I should probably do this with my bigger scissors, but I like to use my smaller scissors so I don't go over my stitches. But it's up to you. Just be careful you don't cut your stitches. If you do cut your stitch, it's not the end of the world. Stick it back under your machine and just re-sew that stitch line that you... Now we don't need to, the only thing we then need to do so that when we turn it is we need to carefully cut into this V here, very carefully. You can see there, we've not gone into the stitches. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's there. So that's ready, that's your body piece. I'm going to do the head pieces, and there'll be a lot of little bits of cutting with this as well. Just bear with me on that. So get your first 2 pieces together, pin, wonder clip, whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. Try and line up your little, I sometimes pop a pin in and line it up that way. So pop the pin in where it is on my draw line there, and it comes through there. Do the same at the top. And that just allows me to line up those curves. And just move that out of the way. Ready to sew. So we're going to sew one side, secure at the top and the bottom again as usual. Put a little stitch. Try and stick exactly to your line because this is going to be the shape of your head. And you don't want a flat bit or you want it to be like a perfect little pumpkin. So just make sure we do it nice and slowly. And stick to a little sewing line. If it gets a bit ruffled, just pick it up with your foot and put it back down. There we go. For some reason I picked up 2 threads there. Right, so what I like to do is, just to make it easy so I don't get bored of putting all my notches in, every time I sew a line, I put my notches in. So just go ahead, like we did with our body, put your notches in along this curve. These are important. It gives you the shape of the head. You're going to do this at every point, all the way around. So, what we're then going to do is going to open that out, get our next petal. We've got our stitch line, you can see all done there. Get our next petal with your drawing line on the outside, line up the corner, a little wiggle till you get it where you want it, and just secure with a couple of pins out the way. So we're ready. We've got one stitch line there, and we're going to sew the next stitch line here. So go ahead, pop it onto your machine, secure, stitch dead along your line, and when you come to the, I don't know if you can see this close enough here, if you come into the top, make sure that your other petal that you've already put on, just pull it out of the way. Hold that down, stitch up to the top and secure. Pull it out, take your end off. Now you shouldn't catch the petal before. That's really important that you don't catch the petal before. Don't worry if you leave a little gap in the top, we can hand stitch that close at the end. And it doesn't matter massively because you're also going to be covering the whole head with your jersey fabric head that we've got for later. So you're going to go ahead and do that on all your petal pieces. So when you're done, and you remember your notches each time, so when you're done you're going to have all 6 petal pieces sewn together. You can have that lovely shape. Keep the curve is there, you can see the curve is there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly just jump over onto the arms, legs and the outer head. I'll show you how to finish the construction of the head in a third video. So here we go. I'm going to do an arm for you. And remember we left a nice seam. We're going to do 2 lines of stitches with this. We're going to we're going to leave a gap along here. So don't worry about marking it or anything, just eyeball it. Stick it in your machine here. And we're going to do this really slowly because you want to try and get this curve nice and neat, because that's going to be the shape at the end of your doll's hand. As long as one end of your doll's hand is absolutely perfectly neat, the other end doesn't matter because it's going to be up in the clothes. So let's just secure the end front and back. Remember, this is your jersey fabric, so it's going to bounce a little bit. And you can't really twist this as you go around a curve because it sort of rooks up. So you're going to have to just put your needle down, stitch a few stitches, turn your work, put your needle down, turn your work, Don't worry about going slow. The best of us do. We all take our time. Another couple of stitches, turn your work. And then you could just stitch off the edge here if you want to. I do right to the edge, but I still back stitch, forward stitch, just to secure. So there we go. You can see, if you look very closely here, I've secured and I've followed that stitch line. That'll make a lovely curve. Now, when we've done both ends, we're going to go ahead and cut it. We're going to cut it fairly close, not too close, sort of 2 millimeters from the edge, like that. Don't leave it so close here, sort of go out a bit where your edge is going to be. So here's one I prepared earlier. This is sewn at both sides, following the curve, and I've come out, so I've left room here. That's for when we sew up. So you would then turn your work, pop your hand through, pop your top of your arm through. And you've got your little arm here. And we're going to stuff it with wadding. You can make a little sausage, if that makes it easier for you. This is always the fiddly bit, so just stuff it in there. Right, so that's one end. Stuff it in the other end. And because we kept our stitch size small, you see here, if you look very carefully, while I'm pushing that, you can barely see the stitch, and it's not gappy at all because we kept our stitch size small. That's really important. Right, and let's fill out the middle of the arm. It's fiddly because the jersey is bouncing and sort of stretching as you go, but that's all good. So here we go, that's one arm shape. Now I personally don't mind that my fabric has turned in as I was doing that. That's going to make it a little bit easier. Because what we're going to do now to close the arm, and this is the technique we'll use to close the leg as well, is get a piece of double threaded in the same colour, knot your end, pop it up underneath your work here, and I'm assuming you know how to do a ladder stitch, but I will just show just in case you're not familiar. So here we go, ladder stitch it. So go in on the other side, up and under. Excuse me. And then back over the other side, up and under. You don't have to pull it closed now. Then the other side, up and under. Cross over again, up and under. Come over again, up and under. Repeat this all the way to the end. I've just unthreaded my needle. What's going to happen is you're going to complete that to the end. Your cloth is turned underneath, so when you pull it, it'll close your seam and make a nice tidy seam. I've already done that on the bottom of my foot here, and you can see. And then tie off your end and knot it. I double knot just to be double sure. So that will be one arm. That'll be your arms done. We're going to now work on the leg. So again, because we didn't cut our sides, we've got sort of quite a large piece. I find just it helps when I come to sew the leg shut at the end if I go forwards and back, and I do it slightly differently. So what I do is I've got my leg piece here. You are going to sew it closed at the foot, but I like to just do a little bit of stitching here. It just helps keep the, when you're stuffing the foot, it helps keep the stitch, makes it easier to ladder stitch because the foot's already started off, if you see what I mean. I did it on this one before I closed it. I machine stitched here, and then I start machine stitching here. So my opening for stuffing was here. That made it very easy just to do my ladder stitch along the bottom of the foot then. So I've started and stopped my stitching there. stick my foot back under the machine and I'm going to start it just a centimetre shy of the toe. Always backwards and forwards, and I think my work's gathered underneath here again. Just excuse me. I'm just going to stop this video and then I'm going to start up on the second bit in a second.